Chapter 14. The Gleam of the Light. In a single breath the face of Jean Croisset became no more than a mask of what it had been. The taunting smile left his lips, and a gray pallor spread over his face as he saw Howland's finger crooked firmly on the trigger of his revolver. In another instant there came the sound of a metallic snap. "Damnation! An empty cartridge!" Howland exclaimed. "I forgot to load after those 3 shots at the cup. It's coming this time, Jean." Purposely he snapped the second empty cartridge. "The great God!" gasped Jean. "Monsieur!" From deep in the forest came again the baying of the Mackenzie hound. This time it was much nearer, and for a moment Howland's eyes left the Frenchman's terrified face as he turned his head to listen. "They are coming!" exclaimed Croisset. "Monsieur, I swear to—" Again Howland's pistol covered his heart. "Then it is even more necessary that I kill you," he said with frightful calmness. "I warned you that I would kill you if you led me into a trap, Croisset. The dogs are bushed. There is no way out of this but to fight, if there are people coming down the trail. Listen to that!" This time, from still nearer, came the shout of a man, and then of another, followed by the huskies' sharp yelping as they started afresh on the trail. The flush of excitement that had come into Howland's face paled until he stood as white as the Frenchman. But it was not the whiteness of fear. His eyes were like blue steel flashing in the sunlight. "There is nothing to do but fight," he repeated, even more calmly than before. "If we were a mile or 2 back there it could all happen as I planned it. But here—" "They will hear the shots!" cried Jean. "The post is no more than a gunshot beyond the forest, and there are plenty there who would come out to see what it means. Quick, monsieur, follow me. Possibly they are hunters going out to the trap lines. If it comes to the worst—" "What then?" demanded Howland. "You can shoot me a little later," temporized the Frenchman, with a show of his old coolness. "Mon Dieu, I am afraid of that gun, monsieur. I will get you out of this if I can. Will you give me the chance, or will you shoot?" "I will shoot if you fail," replied the engineer. Barely were the words out of his mouth when Croisset sprang to the head of the dogs, seized the leader by his neck trace, and half dragged the team and sledge through the thick bush that edged the trail. A dozen paces farther on the dense scrub opened into the clearer run of the low-hanging banskian through which Jean started at a slow trot, with Howland a yard behind him, and the huskies following with human-like cleverness in the sinuous twistings of the trail which the Frenchman marked out for them. They had progressed not more than 300 yards when there came to them for a third time the hallooing of a voice. With a sharp "Hup, hup!" and a low crack of his whip, Jean stopped the dogs. "The Virgin be praised, but that is luck!" he exclaimed. "They have turned off into another trail to the east, monsieur. If they had come on to that break in the bush where we dragged the sledge through—" He shrugged his shoulders with a gasp of relief. "Sacre, they would not be fools enough to pass it without wondering." Howland had broken the breech of his revolver and was replacing the 3 empty cartridges with fresh ones. "There will be no mistake next time," he said, holding out the weapon. "You were as near your death a few moments ago as ever before in your life, Croisset. And now for a little plain understanding between us. Until we stopped out there I had some faith in you. Now I have none. I regard you as my worst enemy, and though you are deuced near to your friends, I tell you that you were never in a tighter box in your life. If I fail in my mission here, you shall die. If others come along that trail before dark and run us down, I will kill you. Unless you make it possible for me to see and talk with Mélisse, I will kill you. Your life hangs on my success. With my failure, your death is as certain as the coming of night. I am going to put a bullet through you at the slightest suspicion of treachery. Under the circumstances, what do you propose to do?" "I am glad that you changed your mind, monsieur, and I will not tempt you again. I will do the best that I can," said Jean. Through a narrow break in the tops of the banskian pines a few feathery flakes of snow were falling, and Jean lifted his eyes to the slit of gray sky above them. "Within an hour it will be snowing heavily," he affirmed. "If they do not run across our trail by that time, monsieur, we shall be safe." He led the way through the forest again, more slowly and with greater caution than before, and whenever he looked over his shoulder he caught the dull gleam of Howland's revolver as it pointed at the hollow of his back. "The devil, but you make me uncomfortable," he protested. "The hammer is up too, monsieur." "Yes, it is up," said Howland grimly. "And it never leaves your back, Croisset. If the gun should go off accidentally, it would bore a hole clean through you." Half an hour later the Frenchman halted where the banskians climbed the side of a sloping ridge. "If you could trust me, I would ask to go on ahead," whispered Jean. "This ridge shuts in the plain, monsieur, and just over the top of it is an old cabin which has been abandoned for many years. There is not one chance in 1,000 of there being any one there, though it is a good fox ridge at this season. From it you may see the light in Mélisse's window at night." He did not stop to watch the effect of his last words, but began picking his way up the ridge, with the dogs tugging at his heels. At the top he swung sharply between two huge masses of snow-covered rock, and in the lee of the largest of these, almost entirely sheltered from the drifts piled up by easterly winds, they came suddenly on a small log hut. About it there were no signs of life. With unusual eagerness Jean scanned the surface of the snow, and when he saw that there was trail of neither man nor beast in the unbroken crust a look of relief came into his face. "Mon Dieu, so far I have saved my hide," he grinned. "Now, monsieur, look for yourself and see if Jean Croisset has not kept his word." A dozen steps had taken him through a screen of shrub to the opposite slope of the ridge. With outstretched arm he pointed down into the plain, and as Howland's eyes followed its direction he stood throbbing with sudden excitement. Less than a quarter of a mile away, sheltered in a dip of the plain, were 3 or 4 log buildings rising black and desolate out of the white waste. One of these buildings was a large structure, similar to that in which Howland had been imprisoned, and as he looked a team and sledge appeared from behind one of the cabins and halted close to the wall of the large building. The driver was plainly visible, and to Howland's astonishment he suddenly began to ascend the side of this wall. For the moment Howland had not thought of a stair. Jean's attitude drew his eyes. The Frenchman had thrust himself half out of the screening bushes and was staring through the telescope of his hands. With an exclamation he turned quickly to the engineer. "Look, monsieur! Do you see that man climbing the stair? I don't mind telling you that he is the one who hit you over the head on the trail, and also one of those who shut you up in the coyote. Those are his quarters at the post, and possibly he is going up to see Mélisse. If you were much of a shot you could settle a score or two from here, monsieur." The figure had stopped, evidently on a platform midway up the side of the building. He stood for a moment as if scanning the plain between him and the mountain, then disappeared. Howland had not spoken a word, but every nerve in his body tingled strangely. "You say Mélisse is there?" he questioned hesitatingly. "And who is that man, Croisset?" Jean shrugged his shoulders and drew himself back into the bush, turning leisurely toward the old cabin. "No, M'sieur, I will not tell you that," he protested. "I have brought you to this place. I have pointed out to you the stair that leads to the room where you will find Mélisse. You may cut me into ribbons for the ravens, but I will tell you no more." Again the threatening fire leaped into Howland's eyes. "I will trouble you to put your hands behind your back, Croisset," he commanded. "I am going to return a certain compliment of yours by tying your hands with this piece of babiche, which you used on me. After that " "And after that, M'sieur?" urged Jean, with a touch of that old taunt in his voice, and stopping with his back to the engineer and his hands behind him. "After that?" "You will tell me all that I want to know," finished Howland, tightening the thong about his wrists. He led the way then to the cabin. The door was closed, but opened readily as he put his weight against it. The single room was lighted by a window through which a mass of snow had drifted, and contained nothing more than a rude table built against one of the log walls, 3 supply boxes that had evidently been employed as stools, and a cracked and rust-eaten sheet-iron stove that had from all appearances long passed into disuse. He motioned the Frenchman to a seat at one end of the table. Without a word he then went outside, securely toggled the leading dog, and returning, closed the door and seated himself at the end of the table opposite Jean. The light from the open window fell full on Croisset's dark face and shone in a silvery streak along the top of Howland's revolver as the muzzle of it rested casually on a line with the other's breast. There was a menacing click as the engineer drew back the hammer. "Now, my dear Jean, we're ready to begin the real game," he explained. "Here we are, high and dry, and down there, just far enough away to be out of hearing of this revolver when I shoot, are those we're going to play against. So far I've been completely in the dark. I know of no reason why I shouldn't go down there openly and be welcomed and given a good supper. And yet at the same time I know that my life wouldn't be worth a tinker's damn if I did go down. You can clear up the whole business, and that's what you're going to do. When I understand why I am scheduled to be murdered on sight, I won't be handicapped as I now am. So go ahead and spiel. If you don't, I'll blow your head off." Jean sat unflinching, his lips drawn tightly, his head set square and defiant. "You may shoot, M'sieur," he said quietly. "I have sworn on a cross of the Virgin to tell you no more than I have. You could not torture me into revealing what you ask." Slowly Howland raised his revolver. "Once more, Croisset, will you tell me?" "No, M'sieur." A deafening explosion filled the little cabin. From the lobe of Jean's ear there ran a red trickle of blood. His face had gone deathly pale. But even as the bullet had stung him within an inch of his brain he had not flinched. "Will you tell me, Croisset?" This time the black pit of the engineer's revolver centered squarely between the Frenchman's eyes. "No, M'sieur." The eyes of the 2 men met over the blue steel. With a cry Howland slowly lowered his weapon. "Good God, but you're a brave man, Jean Croisset!" he cried. "I'd sooner kill a dozen men that I know than you." He rose to his feet and went to the door. There was still but little snow in the air. To the north the horizon was growing black with the early approach of the northern night. With a nervous laugh he returned to Jean. "Deuce take it if I don't feel like apologizing to you," he exclaimed. "Does your ear hurt?" "No more than if I had scratched it with a thorn," returned Jean politely. "You are good with the pistol, monsieur." "I would not profit by killing you just now," mused Howland, seating himself again on the box and resting his chin in the palm of his hand as he looked across at the other. "But that's a pretty good intimation that I'm desperate and mean business, Croisset. We won't quarrel about the things I've asked you. What I'm here for is to see Mélisse. Now, how is that to happen?" "For the life of me I don't know," replied Jean, as calmly as though a bullet had not nipped the edge of his ear a moment before. "There is only one way I can see, monsieur, and that is to wait and watch from this mountain top until Mélisse drives out her dogs. She has her own team, and in ordinary seasons frequently goes out alone or with one of the women at the post. Mon Dieu, she has had enough sledge riding of late, and I doubt if she will find pleasure in her dogs for a long time." "I had planned to use you," said Howland, "but I've lost faith in you. Honestly, Croisset, I believe you would stick me in the back almost as quickly as those murderers down there." "Not in the back, monsieur," smiled the Frenchman, unmoved. "I have had opportunities to do that. No, since that fight back there I do not believe that I want to kill you." "But I would be a fool to trust you. Isn't that so?" "Not if I gave you my word. That is something we do not break up here as you do down among the Wekusko people, and farther south." "But you murder people for pastime, eh, my dear Jean?" Croisset shrugged his shoulders without speaking. "See here, Croisset," said Howland with sudden earnestness. "I'm almost tempted to take a chance with you. Will you go down to the post tonight, in some way gain access to Mélisse, and give her a message from me?" "And the message? What would it be?" "It would bring Mélisse up to this cabin tonight." "Are you sure, monsieur?" "I am certain that it would. Will you go?" "No, monsieur." "The devil take you!" cried Howland angrily. "If I was not certain that I would need you later I'd garrote you where you sit." He rose and went to the old stove. It was still capable of holding fire, and as it had grown too dark outside for the smoke to be observed from the post, he proceeded to prepare a supper of hot coffee and meat. Jean watched him in silence, and not until food and drink were on the table did the engineer himself break silence. "Of course, I'm not going to feed you," he said curtly, "so I'll have to free your hands. But be careful." He placed his revolver on the table beside him after he had freed Croisset. "I might assassinate you with a fork," chuckled the Frenchman softly, his black eyes laughing over his coffee cup. "I drink your health, monsieur, and wish you happiness." "You lie!" snapped Howland. Jean lowered the cup without drinking. "It's the truth, monsieur," he insisted. "Since that beautiful fight back there I can not help but wish you happiness. I drink also to the happiness of Mélisse, also to the happiness of those who tried to kill you on the trail and at the coyote. But, mon Dieu, how is it all to come? Those at the post are happy because they believe that you are dead. You will not be happy until they are dead. And Mélisse, how will all this bring happiness to her? I tell you that I am as deep in trouble as you, M'sieur Howland. May the Virgin strike me dead if I'm not." He drank, his eyes darkening gloomily. In that moment there flashed into Howland's mind a memory of the battle that Jean had fought for him on the Great North Trail. "You nearly killed one of 'em that night at Prince Albert," he said slowly. "I can't understand why you fought for me then and won't help me now. But you did. And you're afraid to go down there—" "Until I have regrown a beard," interrupted Jean, with a low chuckling laugh. "You would not be the only one to die if they saw me again like this. But that is enough, M'sieur. I will say no more." "I really don't want to make you uncomfortable, Jean," Howland apologized, as he secured the Frenchman's hands again after they had satisfied their hearty appetites. "But unless you swear by your Virgin or something else that you will make no attempt to call assistance, I shall have to gag you. What do you say?" "I will make no outcry, M'sieur. I give you my word for that." With another length of babiche Howland tied his companion's legs. "I'm going to investigate a little," he explained. "I am not afraid of your voice, for if you begin to shout I will hear you first. But with your legs free you might take it into your head to run away." "Would you mind spreading a blanket on the floor, M'sieur? If you are gone long this box will grow hard and sharp." A few minutes later, after he had made his prisoner as comfortable as possible in the cabin, Howland went again through the fringe of scrub bush to the edge of the ridge. Below him the plain was lost in the gloom of night. He could see nothing of the buildings at the post but 2 or 3 lights gleaming faintly through the darkness. Overhead there were no stars. Thickening snow shut out what illumination there might have been in the north, and even as he stood looking into the desolation to the west the snow fell faster and the lights grew fainter and fainter until all was a chaos of blackness. In these moments a desire that was almost madness swept over him. Since his fight with Jean the swift passing of events had confined his thoughts to their one objective, the finding of Mélisse and her people. He had assured himself that his every move was to be a cool and calculating one, that nothing, not even his great love, should urge him beyond that reason which had made him a master builder among men. As he stood with the snow falling heavily on him, he knew that his trail would be covered before another day, that for an indefinite period he might safely wait and watch for Mélisse on the mountain top. And yet, slowly, he made his way down the side of the ridge. A little way out there in the gloom, barely beyond the call of his voice, was the girl for whom he was willing to sacrifice all that he had ever achieved in life. With each step the desire in him grew, the impulse to bring himself nearer to her, to steal across the plain, to approach in the silent smother of the storm until he could look on the light which Jean Croisset had told him would gleam from her window. He descended to the foot of the ridge and headed into the plain, taking the caution to bury his feet deep in the snow that he might have a trail to guide him back to the cabin. At first he found himself impeded by low bush. Then the plain became more open, and he knew that there was nothing but the night and the snow to shut out his vision ahead. Still he had no motive, no reason for what he did. The snow would cover his tracks before morning. There would be no harm done, and he might get a glimpse of the light, of her light. It came on his vision with a suddenness that set his heart leaping. A dog barked ahead of him, so near that he stopped in his tracks, and then suddenly there shot through the snow gloom the bright gleam of a lamp. Before he had taken another breath he was aware of what had happened. A curtain had been drawn aside in the chaos ahead. He was almost on the walls of the post, and the light gleamed from high, up, from the head of the stair. For a space he stood still, listening and watching. There was no other light, no other sound after the barking of the dog. About him the snow fell with fluttering noiselessness, and it filled him with a sensation of safety. The sharpest eyes could not see him, the keenest ears could not hear him, and he advanced again until before him there rose out of the gloom a huge, shadowy mass that was blacker than the night itself. The one lighted window was plainly visible now, its curtain 2/3 drawn, and as he looked a shadow passed over it. Was it a woman's shadow? The window darkened as the figure within came nearer to it, and Howland stood with clenched hands and wildly beating heart, almost ready to call out softly a name. A little nearer, one more step, and he would know. He might throw a chunk of snow crust, a cartridge from his belt, and then the shadow disappeared. Dimly Howland made out the snow-covered stair, and he went to it and looked up. 10 feet above him the light shone out. He looked into the gloom behind him, into the gloom out of which he had come. Nothing but the storm. Swiftly he mounted the stair. End of chapter 14. Recording by